Educator Barnes. Most people know me also as Shantae Stockton Barnes, who is the co-founder of Brave Brothers Books. I co-founded this company with my husband, Jermaine Barnes. And there was a reason why I felt so strongly that I, who at the time of the founding of this company was an elementary school librarian, felt so strongly about founding a company while I was working full time as a school librarian. So, to get to why I decided that this was necessary, I need to take you back in my education journey. So, I went to Purdue University. I graduated as an English education major. I left there with licenses in two areas, reading and English language arts. And those are two separate teaching licenses in Indiana. I taught middle school English for several years. And one of the problems that I constantly came across was struggling to find diverse texts. So before I talk about before I can go forward, I have to tell you all what that really means. So when I say diverse text, I am talking about texts that are diverse based on the subject matter and the people who create the book at all levels. So there is this saying that people talk about a lot, which is windows, mirrors, and glass sliding doors. Many times people mention this and they have no clue of the source material. And so I want to stop and take a moment to talk about the source. So the source is Dr. Rudine Sim Bishops. She's known as the mother of multicultural education. And this is the quote where this is from. So she said, books are sometimes windows, offering views of worlds that may be real or imagined, familiar or strange. These windows are also sliding glass doors, and readers have only to walk through in imagination to become part of whatever world has been created or recreated by the author. When lighting conditions are just right, however, a window can also be a mirror. Literature transforms human experience and reflects it back to us. And in that reflection, we can see our own lives and experiences as part of the larger human experience. Reading then becomes a mean of self affirmation, and readers often seek their mirrors in books. A lot of times in the diversity conversation, you hear a lot of representation matters, and it does. But a lot of times we get stuck in the racial aspect. And when I think about my publishing company that I founded with my husband, I'm not just thinking about race. I'm thinking about gender. I'm thinking about sexuality. I'm thinking about ability. I'm thinking about disability. I'm thinking about age. Diversity is just differences and ways we categorize people. And I want to make sure that the books that were hard for me to find as an English teacher are now there. And for years and years and years, I wrote about this issue. I am an education writer. So I wrote about this issue so much so that many times when people come across me in real life, they ask me about some article that I wrote. And they're like, that really stuck to me. I used that to get my principal to give us a bigger budget, to get more books. And that's great. But that's just really throwing a penny into the big pond. And I wanted to make a huge ripple effect when it came to this work. So I felt like I had to actively be part of the solution of doing something about what is happening out here where we don't have access to what we need to create the books that really show our lived experience to other people, but also so we can have insight into someone else's lived experience. And when I'm speaking about diversity, I also mean nationality. That means publishing people who come from different places as well, because it would be great if we all could travel around the world. It would be great if we all could walk in each other's shoes, but sometimes that isn't the case. And we have to do something about that so that we're making an impact. And I decided that I could be the person that could make that impact. Additionally, there is the CCBC. They produce diversity statistics about race and ethnicity. And I look at this every single year because it gives an insight into who is doing the publishing, what the information is about. So in 2022, 29% of books, the subject or the primary character was white. And to juxtapose that to 1% of the subject of children books were focused on indigenous people. And I know that is just two big categories, but when I'm also looking at books that I want to see in the world, I look at what's already out there and think about what's already out there that I can add a little bit of value to. So let's talk about a few things that you need to know if you're going to venture off into the publishing world or if you're a consumer of books. There are several lanes to publish. You have traditional publishing, you have vanity publishing, and you have self-publishing. And my goal is to provide information about the three different lanes and explain why when I was writing this business plan and my husband and I were talking and going back and forth about it, how we decided to stay in the traditional publishing lane, which sometimes can be frowned about. I'm not going to lie and say there aren't issues with all of the models for either the consumer or the writer or the publisher. So let's talk about vanity publishing first. And I participated in vanity publishing when I was a kid and I had no clue about it. So back in the day, you would get this junk mail in the mail, right? And it would send you something and it would say, send in, you wrote a poem, you wrote a story, send this in and you might get published. So at the time, I wrote a lot of short stories when I was a kid and I read a lot of poetry. And at that time, I was really heavy into poetry. So this came in the mail to my parents' house. I sent the poem. Now, me thinking that this is like a contest or something, I'm like, well, maybe I'll get put in the book. Then, weeks and weeks later, I get something in the mail saying, hey, we selected your poem for our book. And I'm like, oh my, that is so awesome. And remember, I'm a kid. So I'm young. So I didn't know what I didn't know. And then you see the whole thing. If you want a copy of this book, pay whatever to get it, right? So that's when I was like, why do I have to pay? Like, what is this? And then as I got older, I found out that that's considered vanity publishing. And that's when people provide some type of compensation when they are being published or featured. And how that has morphed in our like present day, because that was like the 90s when I got caught up into that. So now, 2024, how does that show up today? How that shows up today, there are lots of companies that are like, I can help you get a book out here. We can publish a book like just like that. There are people in my local community that's doing that. There's people I know across the United States that are doing that. But here's the catch. People are paying thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars, and I mean thousands of dollars to get these vanity publishers to publish their books. Now, so what's the benefit to you as the writer? Your work is out in the world. If you wrote something of quality, you have something that's published, you can take that with you. Let's say you're presenting at conferences. If they heard your 30-minute, 50-minute, hour lecture and they loved it and they feel, because, there's a moment after someone hears you speak that they're like, oh, energized, man, you can sell them just about anything. So if you have your books there, they're coming and buying your books and like, voila, you may have gotten paid to present the conference, or maybe you didn't get paid to present the conference, but now you have made your own compensation because you brought your books with you. So that's a benefit to you. But the benefit to the vanity publisher, they are making money off of you. The amount that it costs to actually publish the book, and I'm not talking about marketing a book, that's a whole other lane of money. But the amount that it costs to publish the book is nowhere near. It's pennies compared to what you paid to get published. So they're making a huge payday. And at the end of the day, I'm gonna be real. They don't really care if your stuff's a quality or not. They want it to be of enough quality that you like it, but it may not be up to the standard to a person who is a reader. So if you're a reader in this situation, you're like, man, this book is trash. Did I even got the copyright page done? Did anybody edit this book, proofread it? Like letters are transposed. This book seems to be an odd size. The other reason that vanity publishing is popping off so much is because of AI. So earlier this year, my company actually released a statement on our website to say that we are not using AI. We work with real human illustrators. And to me, that would be a slap in the face to all the illustrators that we ever worked with to ever use AI art in our work. I'm not going to get on the soapbox about AI because AI is here. I said to my own children, I was whispering to my husband, I said something about Skynet, and my boys were like, "What is that?" So that led to us watching all the Terminator movies. So, AI, there are some benefits to AI. There's some things that AI can help us with, but I do not believe AI art should replace actual illustrators, people who have the skill. There's something about being able, you as a human, to interact with another human, and you guys talk and you're in community and they bring your words to life. Or if you're writing nonfiction and you need graphs or you need photography done, and that they really capture the essence of your word. And AI cannot do that. It can't. So a lot of people are like, I don't even got to worry about the illustrator. So I'm just going to use that to quickly get something out and quickly publish that. And I'm just going to, keep it moving and not worry about that. And when I started my publishing company, my son had wrote a story, and there was another organization that essentially was a vanity publisher. And so, like, we had to get legal involved to get like the rights back to the book. And so, the very first book that my company published was that book, and we made sure it was of high quality. The other route is self-publishing. I'm more likely to maybe at least look at your book if you tell me you self-publish it versus that you paid a vanity publisher. When it comes to self-publishing, there are people who write a lot. Maybe you write a lot of articles. I'm known for writing lots of articles. So you have a writing skill and you decide to publish something. And that can be as simple as, you know what, I'm going to publish this PDF to my website, use Canva to make a little cover and put it on there. I'm okay with stuff like that. But if you're trying to make it a real book and you've taken the time to research how to register the copyright, you've taken the time to research what type of book size goes with what type of manuscript and what type of story. You got your copyright page, right? And you don't have all these other people involved. You could make something of quality, and hopefully you had your work edited because everyone needs an editor. But also the downside to that is that you're doing everything yourself. You are writing, you're finding the editor, you're finding the book designer to make sure the pages are right and the book design right. You're registering everything with the Library of Congress. You're getting the ISBN, you're doing all of those things. So when I decided to create this company with my husband, I said, we have to go the traditionally publishing route. And so that meant we had to put up capital up front. We had to put up money up front, but I had saved up for this. So it was, I was an English teacher for a while. Then I worked with multilingual learners. Then I was a literacy coach at both the elementary and high school level. And then I was a school librarian. Being a school librarian, my only job was to make kids love to read. So from kindergarten to sixth grade, I was selling them books like it was $100 bills. That was my job. So I was so full of loving what I was actually doing that it gave me the time to actually create and brainstorm and dream. So side note, if you're working somewhere and your job has bogged you down so much that you can't create, you can't brainstorm, you can't dream, that might not be the place for you. So that job, although it was a short tenure for me, it gave me the time, the brain space to create this. So with that, I want to get a little bit into what our publishing process is. And this video will also appear on Brave Brothers Books website because a lot of the questions I'm about to answer right now are questions that people write in to ask us all the time. And many times there are people that write in because they listen to me or at a conference. They've heard me, speak at different places. They've read something I've written and they see in my little bio that I have this publishing company. And I said to myself, A, I would love to just tell people because there's so many educators I come across that want to write and they want information. But also B, I am a busy person. So I try my best to answer all the emails. But a lot of times it's just literally like copy and paste. So hopefully this video with all my enthusiasm will answer all these questions. The first thing, we have a submissions process. When you're working with a traditional publisher, you either have an agent who is like trying to get your stuff published somewhere at a publishing house, or they may have a submission process, or you may query. So query is when you are, trying to pitch your work to someplace. With us, we have a submission process. For 5 years, we've had open rolling submissions. 2024, because we are doing well, My husband and I was like, we need time of the year where the submissions are closed. So we have decided that during the summer, and so we mean the literal summer. So when the summer solstice starts until fall happens, we are closed for submissions. And that gives everyone, all the wonderful people that work with us at Brave Brother Books, it gives them time to actually mentally rest because we have been cranking out books across these last 5 years. And I want to make sure I'm taking care of these wonderful people who I love so much that bring so many stories to life. So we have a submission process. If you're submitting to any publishing house, whether it's my business, somebody else's business, read the submission process. Most of the time, all the information that you need is there, and you have an idea of what they're looking for. So, for example, my company does not publish erotica. That's not something that we do. Another thing my company doesn't publish, we do not publish books where animals are the main characters. Market research shows that the outside of white children being the subject of books where animals are the character is a high possibility. Enough of that. I want to put out more human stories. So we don't accept any of that. But we have published, children's books. We have published plays. We have published poetry. That alliteration almost got me there. We have published those things. So whoever you submit to, they will have that information there. And then we require a person to have a full manuscript done. Now, some places, if you're curing, they may want like X amount of pages, X amount of words. They may want X amount of chapters done. Because I am a writer, mostly of articles, and because I edit articles for several years, sometimes people know that about me in particular. They think, oh, I'll just reach out and say, I want to write about this. What do I need to do? We're not interested in that. And that maybe sounds harsh, but think about it this way. Would you go to Penguin Publishing? Would you go to Simon & Schuster Publishing? Would you go over there to them and be like, hey, I think I want to write. Can you help me with that? That's not what is going to happen. And that's the case here. I did work with an excellent business, Educator Aid, which is led up by Justine Gonzalez, soon to be Dr. Gonzalez. And we produced a series about writing a book. And in that particular series, we spent time working with a cohort of people to help them write a manuscript, which was a separate program. But when it comes to submitting to any publisher, you're not, their job is not to help you take an idea in your brain and to write a book. Their job is to find people who have books that are written and that they can polish, edit, get the content right to put out into the world. So if you're not at the stage that you have something done, then you shouldn't be out here. You should actually be somewhere writing, and you should be getting your writing life together. If you want to be a writer, you have to write. And a lot of times when people reach out to me, they're like, well, like, what do I do? Right. It's like when people want to get fit and they're like, what do I do? And the trainer says exercise. Now, I get it that there are some ways you want to exercise to be more productive. There's some ways you want to write to be more productive, but we don't do the work of teaching you how to write. Now, we do make sure work is polished when it goes out. So we require a manuscript to be done. You actually submit that manuscript and you fill out some demographic information. We track demographic information because our tagline is diverse books for all readers. We want to make sure that we have people from different walks of life. So one of our books, the person lives with autism. It was important to us to not just support what you would call neurotypical writers, but also support writers who are not neurotypical and getting their works out into the world. We also publish adults and we also publish children. So that's also important. And sometimes children want something quick, fast, in a hurry. And we let kids know, like we let adults know, our process takes 2 years. And people are like, 2 years? Like, that's too long. Most of the time when I have picked up books and someone said they made it in less than a year or a few months, I find egregious errors and problems with the book. And I'm like, yeah, maybe you sold this book really fast and you got that fast cash, but do you got sustainability across time? Well, 20 years later, will someone want to buy your book and recommend it? And that's the staying power of books. You want people to keep wanting to buy your book over time. So, for example, if they buy your book, so I was a librarian, right? One of the things I had to do was reorder books because books were so the book was popular, like Diary of a Wimpy Kid, or oh, I can't. Why is all the books slipping my mind right now? But that's the one that I rebought frequently. Rick Riordan's books. I would reorder that. But if I get books, they're falling apart, they have issues in it after I order it, I am not going back to reorder your book. So now you got a one-time sale, and that's not what you want. So you submit it in, our team reviews it. And it's a team of people. So a lot of people like, I know Shantae, or they know my husband. I know Jermaine Barnes. Others talk to him. They definitely gonna publish me. It don't work like that. And trust me, we have rejected family members, friends that submitted, and we have a standard thing that comes out that tells you, and we do give some low level feedback. We don't go and edit up the thing and say, do this, change this, do that, because that wouldn't be good use of my time or your time, especially because we're still not going to publish it. So we put that out there to say that knowing us or anybody that works with us does not guarantee. We have a process. We have people who look over it. We look at, we do some market research. We see like what the market says. We also try to make sure that it's unique, because a lot of times people are just doing multiple stories that have already been done. Like we need a new story now, or it's not done in a unique way that adds value to the conversation that other stories have already told. So we look at that, and then we send either yay or nay. You get something for us. So if you we said no, not at this time, you get a message from us, and it also says do not resubmit to us until 6 months after this rejection notice. The reason we went to that was because what would happen was we would reject somebody and they would resubmit the whole thing, like they changed it or something, cleaned it up or whatever, or they would just send a whole bunch of manuscripts trying to see which one we're going to pick. I'm like, no, we don't got time for that, because what you need to do is go back and write. And also, if we reject you, that doesn't always mean that what you submitted wasn't good. It may not be a fit for what we do here in our brand and our mission. So do not let a rejection be a stop. Because we always say that we hope you resubmit again in the future after 6 months. And we also want people to know that they can try somewhere else because someone else may love the story. So let's say we say, yeah, come on. You sign a contract. That is typical. With our company, we get 60% of the profits of every sale of your book. You get 40% of the profits. Now, typically in traditional publishing, the publisher may get 80% and the person gets 20%, or the publisher may get 90% and you may get 10%. So we try to have that type of model going on for right now. That may change in the future, but for 5 years, we've been able to keep it at a 60-40 split. The person who writes the book, once it gets published, they get to buy it at for themselves, not at the retail price, but at a highly discounted price. A lot of times people tell me with Vanity Publishing, they have spent thousands and hundreds and thousands of dollars buying their own book, which is ridiculous, because when publishers and bookstores buy your book, if your book's for sale for $20, they're not buying it for $20. So you shouldn't be buying your book for $20 if you went through the process. And then some publishers, they give you like a advance, a bonus and stuff like that. We don't do that. We just split all the profits from all the sales. Speaking of, how do we distribute the books? We do them globally. Our books are in libraries in different places across the United States. They are also in bookstores, so physical bookstores in some places where you can actually go in and grab the book. And then we also have it online. So we have, like, our poetry book is selling really well in Germany. We don't market in Germany. We don't know why or how it's selling there, but it is. So that's really cool. So our books are selling around the world. And many times with vanity publishers, all they're doing is using Kindle Create and it's put it on Amazon. If the only place your book is on Amazon, you're going to have a huge problem with libraries, because you want libraries to have your book. Now you're probably thinking to yourself, well, so I live in Indianapolis, and so you have Indianapolis public libraries, you have Central Library, and then you have all these different libraries across Indianapolis. Well, they may buy 5 or 6 copies of your book, but if someone comes in and reads your book for free in the library, they might in the future pay to buy your book, which is why we want our books in libraries, and we want librarians to be able to buy them. If your book is only on Amazon, that is not the system through which libraries typically buy their books. Now, I know some librarians who work for public libraries, and if they really like the book and they really want it, they'll go through that process, but then they are buying it at face value, at retail value. And that's not what they want to do because they have budgets. They want to be able to buy it for that discount. And they can't get a discount if your book is not globally distributed through the channels through which libraries buy their books. And so if you're going with vanity or even you're going for self-publishing and you're not distributing your books properly, you will be shooting yourself in the foot when it comes to sales of your books. So we make sure all of that happens. Once we get the manuscript, it is edited, and we deal with all types of editors. So I'm going to tell you about a few type of editors. You have your content area editor that really looks at the content. Is the content solid? Are there any issues? And then you may look at it from the age group. So Ghost Text, for example, is the second book that we put out. And in this particular book, you have three friends who are trying to figure out why this ghost is texting them. They're trying to solve this mystery. There was a part in the book where the boys in the original manuscript just left to go somewhere. Well, that was flagged as a safety issue by one of our editors to say that could be promoting kids just leaving. So we changed part of that book to say that anytime that the boys left, they either texted their parents, left a note on the fridge, they did something, because those are little things when you're writing, you're just, as the author, you're not thinking about all that stuff. You're just trying to get your work out into the world. When we had the play, Mitzi Mort, Afterlife Attorney, which is a phenomenal, hilarious play that is geared towards middle school students. We had that looked at through two lenses. This play has been performed by a middle school performing troupe. So we wanted to make sure that when it came to the theater and stage plays, that it was formatted correctly and edited correctly. Then also we wanted to be able to be used in secondary classrooms. So we also had a lens for that as well. So that one we brought in different editors. When we had the poetry book, we're bringing in someone that's an expert in poetry. We have another book that just came out that centers a child with autism. We hired a person that specializes in editing books where you're dealing with a disability or a health issue to make sure that we wrote that book was written with sensitivity and care. So when it comes to editing, it's not just proofreading. There's line editing, there's content editing, there's sensitivity reading, and then there may be some editing with that. And of course, you have your grammar and all that stuff. So the editing process takes a long time. When I think about Ghost Text, trying to think off the top of my head, that probably went through 15 different iterations, 15 to 20 iterations of the original manuscript. And so if someone's just putting out a book like that because they self-published or vanity published, they're not getting that type of editing. And that is a problem. And that's when you have quality. You don't want the lack of quality of your book to distract from the actual content of your book. So you have the editing that happens. And then if it is a fiction book and you need illustrations, we bring in illustrators. And what is important to us is that we get the best illustrators that we can. So we have some books where the characters have Afro textured hair. So we want to make sure that they can do it. So when we have illustrators come in, we ask them to do different things like, can you submit an image of your illustration of an Afro textured person with an Afro? Can you submit somebody that has a fade? Can you submit somebody that has braids or locks or two-strand twists? Because what we're not about to do is have a great story and then have some janky, subpar illustrations. One of the things that we get a lot of praise about are how great our illustrations are in our books, and that they appreciated that our characters didn't look stereotypical, and that when it came to hair, regardless of the texture of the hair, that it looked appropriate and it wasn't like, I say it this way, sometimes you look at books and, you have levels of melanin, right? But if you if you made all the melanin of all the characters the same shade, the characters they would look one ethnicity. If you changed all the color, made it darker, it doesn't matter. I shouldn't be able, if I have Afro texture hair, to make my skin really light, and now I don't look like I have Afro texture hair. So those are some of the things that we really look into. So you have the illustration process. And then there's a back and forth, because we want to make sure that the author loves the illustrations, because there's nothing worse than loving your words and hating how your words are brought to life. So there's some negotiation on that. Then after that, we put it into the hands of our wonderful book designer. Our book designer makes sure that each book has its unique look, There are some books I see, I'm like, I know AI was used to create this because all your books look exactly the same. And the one thing about AI, especially when people are using AI to generate audiences in the background or crowds, here's a little challenge for you. Look at the noses. And now that I tell you that you're not going to be able to unsee it, look at the noses. When you look at the noses, are all the noses like more like real noses, or are some of them cartoon noses? Some people are so quick to put out books that they don't even realize that the AI is making them look bad, because you'll have some people in the background that their noses look really real, like it's like realism. And then you have some people, they got this little cartoon noses, like you're watching Saturday morning cartoon. And all of that is on the same page. If you know anything about writing stories, you are creating a world for someone to walk into. So why does some characters in your world look real and some of them look like cartoons? That is a quality issue, which is a distraction to the reader, and also makes people not want to buy your books in the future because you're putting out subpar content. So those are some of the things that we look at. And then if it is, My Family's Great Smoky Mountains Adventures, that book has photography in it. So some of the pictures in the book had to be reshot. The ones that were able to be reshot because they were shot in a different location than the author lives, because they weren't of the quality when it came to printing them. So sometimes that's what happens. And then once you get everything together and the designer has all the words on the page and it makes, you have your unique font and the copyright page is done correctly. And with that, on the copyright page, you have an ISBN. You get that through Boker. Some people only have an Amazon number. If you only have an Amazon number, you're not doing your book right. There's only one company that sells ISBNs. So if you're buying ISBNs for somebody else, they are buying it from the one company that sells it. So now they are obviously going to mark it up. So why don't not go to the source? And when you do buy ISBN, if you're going to do self-publishing, buy it in bulk. It's cheaper. We bought our ISBNs in bulk 5 years ago, and we still haven't had to buy more because we just put down the money and just got them. And speaking of ISBNs, you need a different ISBN for every version of your book. So Dear Curly Hair, we have that book in paperback in English. That's one ISBN. We have it in an ebook in English. That's a second ISBN. We have it in hardback in English. That's a third ISBN. We also have it in Spanish in all those three formats. So now we're up to 6. And then we also have a multicultural version. So now we are up to 9 ISBNs for one book. Every book has to have its own ISBN. And when we get into audiobooks, because our company doesn't have any of our books on audio, we actually have one on audio, but it hasn't been released yet. When that gets released, that will have its own ISBN as well. But on the copyright page, you have your ISBN, and then you have your Library of Congress number, which you would get after you have your ISBN, and then you also have your copyright information, because all your work should be filed with the Library of Congress Copyright Office. And if you're paying someone to do that, depending on what you're copywriting, you're spending under $100. And there are people out here charging $200 or $300 to do copyright. And the one thing I'll tell you about the Library of Congress, those hours they have on their website, people answer the phone, because I've called them many times to ask questions, and there's someone that actually answers the phone. So again, you don't need to pay somebody for some of this stuff. So that's why I always try to push people. They don't want to go through traditional publishing and submitting manuscripts and having an agent or carrying. Just do it yourself. Because you're going to probably get ripped off and spend way more money than you would need to going through a vanity publisher, because the vanity publisher only goal is to make money off of you while creating your book. They don't care about actually the selling of your book, most of them. Okay. So back to our traditional publishing process. Once we do all of those things, then we get a proof copy. So that means you get an e-version, you get a hard copy, and you look at it. Every time I get the hard copy in my hand, I take it out with a highlighter. My team goes over it, and we just mark this the heck up. Anything that needs to be changed, we change that, and we get that right. We do that as many times as possible. And in the meantime, I looked at my beta readers. I love my beta readers. They are the people that ask the editing process when it's being read. They give feedback, and we have all types of beta readers, from age to gender, to race, to ethnicity, to nationality. That's really giving the lens to this book. So Dear Curly Hair, we translated that book into Spanish. The reason we translated that book into Spanish, because we were hearing for a lot of Afro-Latinos about the fact that they wish that book was in Spanish, because they know so many Afro-Latinos that have afro textured hair that hate their hair, and they wanted that book. So then when we went to go translate it, if you know anything about Spanish, there's I don't know how to say this. There are views about what is the right Spanish, kind of like how we have views about what is standard English. But it was important to us that if our target was Afro Latinos, that it was written in a way that addressed that community and not necessarily getting caught up in the norms of whatever people consider that are the standard Spanish police. Okay. Because we have had some people, you should have said this, and we go back to our people. They're like, that is right, but this is also right. So neither one is wrong. We stand 10 toes down on that. So after all that's done, is out there in the world, is distributed, and our authors go to different places. Some of our books have licensing agreements, and that's when the organization pays to have our book in their platform. So that's also great. And so that's our process. And the one thing, the author does not pay us anything. They don't pay us to edit the book. They don't pay us to hire the illustrator. They don't pay us to design the book. We pay all those people. So that's why we have a high rejection rate, because there's so much capital and investment that we put into authors that we want it to be a damn good story. I'm just going to be straight up with you. It has to be good. And we take the 2 years to get it to that level. Even yesterday, an awards reached out to us, and I'm not going to get into that, but they reached out and they want to consider one of our books for an awards. And to me, that just made me feel really good on the inside, because I know that we're doing quality, and I've heard from so many public libraries, so many schools, so many teachers that they love that. And speaking of teachers, if you're watching this and you're a teacher, all of our books are officially Lexiled. So that means our books go to the Lexile company. They produce a vocabulary list that goes with all our books, and you can look up our books on the Lexile website, because I know there's that free thing where you can stick, some paragraphs in there and get a estimated Lexile. You can't do that and then put the Lexile on the back of the book, because Lexile will come after you. We go through the formal official process through Lexile, and so our books have an official Lexiles on that site. And many standardized tests produce a Lexile for students. And if you don't know what a Lexile is like a reading, I don't want to say it's a reading level. It gives you an idea of what kind of books is appropriate for that child. And it doesn't mean they have to stay within that range, but it helps teachers have a gauge. So a lot of times teachers like that. They're like, oh, I'm teaching second grade. Can I want to talk to you all. How can I buy a class set of ghost texts? And that's a real thing that happened because they saw the Lexile and they don't have to think about it. And so that's super, super, super important. So that is our publishing process. And I got into this for the same reason I got into teaching. I didn't get into it for the income. I got into it for the outcome. And yes, I do want to get paid like everybody else, but quality matters to me more. And a lot of times when I talk to other people that are publishing books, some of the things that they say, they don't care about the quality. And me as an English teacher, as a professional writer, that scares me. It scares me that we have content out in the world that people are consuming, especially younger humans who are still learning, that it would be okay that we are putting things out into the world that could not be of quality, could have misconceptions, could we fact check stuff when we it is nonfiction, and even if it's fiction. Sometimes there's fact checking involved. If you're doing realistic fiction, you want to make sure you're not saying something that's located in New York and it isn't, because somebody's gonna come after you, and you don't want that to happen. So hopefully this gave you all some information about Brave Brother Books. And I call it the family affair because my husband and I are co-owners. I'm the CEO, he's the CFO, and our sons are members of this business. So they do work in this business. So like I have a book that our company published, and I actually had no intention of actually publishing a book. No intention. But my son is actually the illustrator of that book. And based on him illustrating my book, he actually got other opportunities to illustrate. So our illustrators are top notch. They have illustrated for great books. They have illustrated for other publishing houses. Our editors have edited for other publishing houses. Ones that if you go to your home and pull books off your bookshelf, some of our editors could be the editors of those books as well. And our book designer is phenomenal. And our beta readers around the world, because some of our beta readers do not live. I remember we had to ship books to the UK. Some of our beta readers do not live in the United States. So I love every person that has joined our journey for Brave Brother Books. And if you are interested, you listen to all of that, and you're like, okay, that is great, Shante. That's great, Educator Barnes. How can I get involved? How can I learn more? You can contact us at bravebrothersbooks.com. You can go to our website and check out all the stuff I just mentioned. Or you can send us an email at connect@bravebrothersbooks.com, and somebody from our team will get back to you. But we are here to create diverse books for all readers. That is my aim and that's my goal. And I want to leave this company to my wonderful sons because that is part of my legacy. I want my legacy when I'm no longer here is that I made an impact on ensuring that we had diverse books for all readers in the world. Thanks so much for tuning in and listening, and reach out if you have any further questions.